Beloved, it is with heavy hearts that we gather here today to memorialize Edgar Allan Poe. Please allow me to introduce myself, Miss Maggie Black. I am an assistant professor of English at Elizabethtown Community and Technical College, a student of the American Romantic literary period to which Poe belongs, and your ghostly funeral director. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to those who have made this event possible. Katrina Eicher, who also happens to be the founder of Humanities Night, the Student Government Association, the ECTC Bookstore, Carl Butts, Tiffin Schultz, Cassie Skis, Katie Long, Rhonda McClure, Chrissy Dunford, Jason Cadaver, Jim Murderly, and Robert Woodson and the carpentry students who specialize in coffin building. At the end of the service, you may approach the coffin and pay your respects to the body, but first, we resurrect the mind. A man of great intellectual skill, Edgar Allan Poe wove tales of horror and mystery for our delight, all the while admiring the beautiful and the strange. This evening, we celebrate his life, his career, and his philosophy, so that he may rest not only in peace, but in glory. For those who heed these lessons well, the chance will come to win contests of memory and of costume. Allow me to introduce our other grave and reverend eulogizers. To pay musical tribute to Mr. Poe's pen, Mr. K. Evil Shank. To dissect Poe's philosophy, Mr. John Dryden. And now please welcome our first speaker, Professor of Histrionics, Dr. Lori Stearns.
My fellow mourners, we are gathered here tonight to lay to rest our friend, Edgar Allan Poe, and to atone the indignities that attended his first wretched funeral in Baltimore 163 years ago. On that dark and dreary October day, only 5 known mourners, 2 cousins, 2 friends, and an uncle, conducted what one described as a 3-minute, cold-blooded, unchristian-like service. Edgar was placed in an unmarked grave, in a coffin with no handles, no nameplate, no lining, no cushion for his head. Mystery shrouds Poe's death. Why the rushed, undignified funeral without close family or fanfare? Why the damning and dishonest obituary by literary critic Rufus Griswold? This obituary wrongly placed his death a month early. They claimed that few would grieve Poe's death, that he had no friends. Why was Poe in Baltimore when he died? He should have been in New York. Did Poe die of natural causes or foul play? Or most intriguing of all, was love a factor in Poe's death? Edgar wrote that love was the only thing worth living for. Did Poe die for love? Love, back up, Edgar first experienced heartbreak at the age of 17 when his secret engagement to Elmira Royster was discovered and derailed by her father. 6 years later, the bachelor Poe took in his impoverished aunt, Maria Clem, and her 9-year-old daughter, Virginia. Soon thereafter, another family member attempted to adopt Virginia. Poe stopped that from happening. He wrote his aunt, his passionate, devoted love of his cousin. And so it came to pass when Virginia Virginia was 13, she became Edgar's bride. The marriage was not consummated for 2 years, but with her pale complexion, dark hair, and huge violet eyes, she was described as pale, frail, delicate, and doomed. And so it came to be. 11 years later, she died of consumption. Edgar was shattered. He had lost his soulmate, the inspiration for his greatest poems like Annabel Lee. His tears watered the flowers on her grave for days. He wrote, "We loved with a love that was deeper than love." And yet, in the last 2 years of Edgar's life, he proposed to at least 5 women. 3 of these proposals were current at the time of his death. One to the writer, Sarah Ellen Whitman of Providence, Rhode Island. Edgar asked for her hand in marriage during a romantic stroll through a cemetery one evening in Providence. She declined. Edgar wrote, "My heart is broken. I have no wish but to die. I would joyfully go down with you into the night of the grave." She changed her mind. She replied she would marry if Poe gave up drinking. Edgar replied, "I have pressed your letter again and again to my lips, bathing it in tears of joy or a divine despair." But at the same time, Edgar was courting the married Annie Richmond, pleading for her to leave her husband and become his bride. And he called her, "My pure, beautiful angel, wife of my soul." Well, in the month of November 1848, in a fit of romantic despair, Edgar tried to kill himself. He bought 2 ounces of laudanum and wrote to Annie to come to my bed of death. He took 1 ounce, and she did not appear, and neither did the Grim Reaper. This image of Poe was taken 4 days after his deranged dance with death. The following summer, Edgar returned to Richmond and encountered again his first love, Elmira, who now was an exceedingly wealthy widow. Edgar wasted no time. She agreed to marry him. He wrote to his aunt in New York that he was coming to collect her and she could live with the newlyweds, and that he wished that he would be a married man before he departed Richmond. But that was not to be. Edgar left Richmond on the 24th of September, a Thursday, on a steamer, bound first to Baltimore. He arrived in Baltimore Saturday morning and promptly vanished. 5 days later, Poe was found lying in the gutter in Lombard Street in the 4th Ward of Baltimore. He was disheveled, delirious, in coarse attire, in clothing that were not his. What had happened? It is a mystery. Was he arrested as a vagrant and held in jail? Had he been wandering drunk for 5 days? Had he been hiding from assassins? Poe was carried to Washington University Hospital, where he lingered in a coma interrupted by periods of delirium. When he would come to, he begged the doctor to take out his gun and kill him and put him out of his misery. Finally, Sunday morning, 7 October, he gasped, "Lord, help my poor soul," and died. There are innumerable theories of Poe's death. Had he died of a stroke? Syphilis? Was his death a hoax? Was it murder? That is the argument of this book by John Walsh. He claims that Elmira's brothers followed Poe to Baltimore and fatally beat him to prevent the marriage with their sister and Poe getting his hands on her inheritance. The evidence is circumstantial and conjecture. We do not know. Let us return to Edgar's grave. Eventually, a church sexton marked his plot with a small sandstone with the number 80 etched. And then, in 1875, with Poe's international reputation as a literary genius growing, the good citizens of Baltimore dug him up, moved his bones to a more prominent spot, and placed a monumental monument. Walt Whitman. Years later, Virginia was removed from her grave in New York and placed in the grave with Edward. So they are reunited in death. But the mysteries remain. Would my fellow mourners please repeat after me in voices that would disturb the living but wake the dead? Soft may the worms. About them creep.